So I'm live on YouTube, I'm live on LinkedIn. Now I gotta go live on WhatsApp. I have to share this link with people, right? So, yeah. If you can hear me in the meanwhile, let me know. And we will begin the show that we deserve. The show that we deserve. The show that we deserve. Sent the message to people on WhatsApp. And there we are. Done. We are ready. We are ready, folks. So if you can hear me, say something. And we will begin. Whew. Nice. Lovely. Beautiful day. Beautiful people. Beautiful everything. So I guess you can hear me. Can you hear me? Our people are joining in. That's good. That's always good. If you can hear me, say it and we will go. We will go, folks. Always very conscious about my hair. Let me check myself on YouTube. That sounds good. Good morning, says Mr. Rishi Jha. Good morning, Mr. Jha. Can you hear me properly? Yeah, you can. I just checked myself. It's fine. Now let's begin. Bum bum bum. Bum bum bum. Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. Bum bum bum. Bum bum bum. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Thinker's Frequency. We're having such a good time. This is the peak of human civilization. We're working so hard, doing such good work for ourselves, our parents, our kids, our siblings, our husbands, our wives, our friends, everybody. A lot of the people's husbands and wives, I hope. And just when we thought things couldn't get any better, like they couldn't possibly get any better, well, they just did. Call it divine intervention, folks, but things just got a whole lot better. Now we have Thinker's Frequency, our weekly mental workout, a weekly dose of insights and analysis that don't lead to paralysis right before we punch in. So let's continue with our journey of reading between the lines, things that are especially interesting and important in the world of business and finance. Let's go! But before we go, you gotta follow tradition, right? You know the tradition. You know the sweet and sacred tradition of the simultaneous sip. We'll all sip something together, and it'll bring us good luck, as it always does, without fail, every day. And all you need for the simultaneous sip is a cup or mug, a glass, a tank, a chalice, a stein, a canteen jug, a flask, or a vessel of any kind. Pour it with your favorite liquid. I like some hot water with black pepper in it. And here we go. It's lovely. Absolutely lovely. Delicious. You know what the simultaneous sip says, right? You know what it says? It says that you're not alone. It says that we're in this together, which is such a beautiful thing to say. With that out of the way, let's begin. So a lot of things happened last week. RBI's monetary policy came out. They're not reducing the rates any further for now, right? They revised the growth rate to 7.4%. Rates are going to be there as they are, which is exactly what we had predicted. We had said RBI wouldn't fiddle with the rates right now because it's going to be hard. It's going to be difficult, right? For the bond market to adjust, the yields get disturbed, a lot of things happen. The rates need to be fully transmitted in the system, the banking system, and the lending rates, the actual lending rates need to come at par with the repo rates, right? So that's exactly what's happening. It might happen next fiscal year or so, but for now, we are good when it comes to RBI rates, right? we should say a few things, some self-congratulatory things. You remember every analyst, I quoted them, and they were saying that IT would be looking at a comeback, right? The stocks, IT stocks will be looking at a comeback. This is what these people said, right? All of them said IT has sort of bottomed out. The risks to IT have bottomed out, and now it could be a good time to buy the stakes. And what did I tell you? Do you remember what I told you? Do you remember what I told you? I knew what you're gonna do, what you're gonna do, but do you remember what I told? That was Robert De Niro from Casino. But do you remember what I told you? I told you all of these guys were wrong. I told you all of these guys are absolutely wrong. They have no clue. And IT is gonna get hit, right? And that's exactly what happened. The last week, IT index fell once again 7% or something of that sort, right? I told you. All of these people were wrong. Once again, Thinker's frequency was right. This is not happening for the first time. Hopefully, this doesn't happen for the last time either. But why are these people wrong? Like these financial analysts at the top of the tree, they're doing all the research, they're getting the big bucks. And here we are at Thinker's frequency, sitting in pajamas, right? Just thinking about things. Just thinking, right? How are they wrong and we right when it comes to things like these? And the answer is that they don't. A lot of these finance guys, they're looking at technicals, right? Uh, the candles and so on and so forth, and all lot of pullbacks in global market. They're not concerned with the fundamentals as much, which is where things start to fall apart, right? Technicals is basically astrology, right? Got a lot to deal with the reality of the situation, the fundamentals, where the money is going, where the money could go, and how it changes when something new gets introduced. So, what I had said was that the overhang on IT is gonna stay, and it's just a matter of bad news wherever it comes from. And as it comes, it's gonna happen again, and that's exactly what happened. So, fundamentals are very important when it comes to these things. Secondly, another self-congratulatory thing that we've got to say is shipping corporation, the shipping stocks, right? In the Thinkers Frequency Tracker, which I have shared, by the way, with you all now. It's finally here. I'm gonna keep working on it, keep updating it. But I wrote this on last Sunday or something, Saturday, Sunday. That's when I found time, and I wrote the tracker. And in that tracker, now I'll quote you what I read, what I wrote. I said, Mascot Dock and related shipbuilding companies like Shipping Corporation, Garden Reach, Cochin Shipyard, etc., have been bullish on this industry since the beginning. Started talking about it in May. The price for over 3,000. The stock is now at 2,400. India is really going heavy on shipbuilding as an industry. The order book of company and others in the same place flush, and the stock is also corrected from its peak. From January onwards, the stock could go up by 30% in a year horizons. Others could also face similar upward momentum. This is not, you can look at the edit history, right? It's right there in front of you. And you know what happened to Shipping Corporation stock in just this last week? Do you know what happened? Do you know what happened? Do you know what happened? It went up by 25% just this week. Just this week, folks. Purely fundamental calls, right? Not stock calls. We don't discuss stocks, right? We don't discuss about investments. This is not an investment tip session. This is Thinker's Frequency. We just think, right? And when we thought, it turned out to be so proficient, so prescient. It's just beautiful, right? Lovely. I had also said Ether, right? Started the recommendation at the price of 310. The stock was 700. Now it's 720. This also went up, right? I had said Airtel. I don't know what's happening with Airtel. Shelly. I have been talking about Shelly. Vigo V thing, right? That's up 10-15%. Then there's railway stocks. They've not started moving yet. Let's see what happens. Let's see what I've written about gold. Have been talking about it as a hedge against the fiat system. Has grown incredibly since we've been talking. De-dollarization is a big overhang for the global economy. US forces will obviously try their best to avoid it, and in some ways they're succeeding as well. But there's real uncertainty The value of gold is up. The gold crashes only after the economic crash has subsided and the system looks stable and certain for a while. Should be kept as a hedge against problems. Gold is not to make money, it's to not lose money, right? And gold went down by 3%, I guess, last after rising and falling. So let me look at the GLD, right? So if I look at GLD, since past 5 days, it's where it is, not losing money, 0.29% up. In the past month, it's 7% up. 6 month, of course, 46%. Year to date, it's a year it's 68-70%. So that's incredible. Silver, by the way, went down by 11% yesterday in the Western markets. That's huge. I This is why I didn't write about silver. I told you it's very volatile. So we are gonna use this tracker. We're gonna keep on this tracker. Week one, amazing, amazing. It's not just amazing, but it's amazing in British accent, right? That's the beauty of it. Okay. So that's what happened. The monetary policy came along. Of course, the geopolitics is where it was. Yeah, Russia and US are warming up. US says they're welcoming back Russia into the system. They say sanctions will be off and so on and so forth. Ukraine, in the meanwhile, says elections will only happen once everything is stabilized. That's Zelensky trying to keep a seat. If Ukraine loses the war and they end up losing territory and a lot of things happen geopolitically, right? The only way out for Zelensky is out of Ukraine. Otherwise, he'll be dead, right? So, very complicated situation. Israel, Hamas, still very complicated. Iran, very complicated. Japan, China, very complicated. By the way, Japan, Madam Takaichi, she's back. Very historic elections, very historic win. Snap elections, great win. So that's what's happening with Japan, right? Of course, everything else is pretty much where it was: Pakistan, Afghanistan, Baloch, you know, India, China. So geopolitically, Bangladesh, everything is pretty much where it was. So that means gold essentially keeps its value, right, as it were. And maybe a lot of analysts have given gold a $6,000 target. JP Morgan and all. I don't trust those guys, but it is definitely a hedge, right? And a valid hedge, and it'll keep going up. Speaking of geopolitical tensions, India has okayed the purchase of Rafale scalp missiles, other aircrafts. It's gonna be a little, very much a make in India play. Uh, so that's pretty big, right? Defense outlay $23 billion, pretty much where it was. 18% rose, right? Didn't really do uh, as well as expected. I guess if you're looking at the GDP as a percentage of GDP, it must be around 1.92%, which is pretty much where it was. So this is not exactly what we were hoping for when it comes to defense, right? But that's what's going on. So let's move forward with our daily updates of things, right? 3.6 lakh crore proposals also include other armaments. That's okay. Dragon draws red line for autos after January passenger car sales drop 20%. China fights price wars. New rules curb companies from setting value below production costs. So China is going through a deep discounting uh, of cars. Essentially, that's what's happening in Chinese markets. Deep discounting when it comes to car market. China has obviously taken over the European market, and Chinese automotive industry is just ready to demolish everything in the under the sun. If you've noticed Chrysler, did you notice Chrysler? What happened to Chrysler stock? It went down by 26%, right? So that's what's happening to the global automotive industry against China. But the thing is, because of the whole extra ultra competitive space, China is basically struggling. 1.4 million passenger cars were sold in January, well below 2.2 million units sold in December. Right? That's what's happening with Chinese cars. Uh, there is no. China had also given incentives for people to buy cars. If you remember, there were $1,000 kind of an incentive when it came to cars. Let's see till when China will be able to sustain the domestic momentum, because there's only a ceiling. There's a ceiling to how high you can go when it comes to this particular play, right? There are signs of saturation, but don't count China out, right? Nissan, by the way, the Japanese company, $4.2 billion loss, low sales. Loss is better than expected, but $4.2 billion is not very nice. Japan, Nissan was wanting to merge with Honda, if you remember, but Honda wanted it as a subsidiary, and that wasn't, you know, acceptable. Perhaps the deal didn't go through, and Nissan is pretty much in an existential threat. So let's see what happens with Nissan. Although things might just happen. Uh, India is going through a CPI revamp. We've been talking about this. Thinkers Frequency viewers know that the CPI, uh, the inflation index is basically going to get readjusted from 2014 to 2022, 2024. Right, this is very important because a lot of things are get updated in 10 years. The times have changed, e-commerce, quick commerce, airpods, a lot of things have changed. The consumer index, the consumer basket has changed. The contribution of food has come down from 65 to 55%. So all of those things need some adjustment, right? Food weight reduced from 45 to 36.75%. E-commerce and so on and so forth is included. When it comes to that, inflation at 2.75% in Jan. RBI is pretty happy. They've uh, kept the inflation limit to 2.1%. I mean, the target as the economy grows 7.5% in real terms. So, very good macros, right? India has pretty solid macros from all over the place, which is amazing because uh, this is very necessary. As we said, India is not being very proactive when it comes to fixing the rupee devaluation. Now, why is India not being able to, not really looking at fixing the rupee devaluation? It's because inflation is all right, right? Inflation is all right. India is an import heavy country. India is trying to export. If it tries to export and the currency raises, the exports become uncompetitive. So currency devaluation is basically a hedge against tariffs and stuff like that. Well, that's handled well, and tariff situation is obviously changing when it comes to US. A lot of very favorable tariff situations happening to India, but inflation decides whether that import tariff it's to be dealt with. If inflation starts rising, you'll see India fixing its currency pretty well, but that time is not now. I'm sorry if you're noticing a bit of lisp when it comes to my, tongue is pretty much screwed for some reason. So I apologize if I sound funny, but yeah, that's what's happening, right? Inflation under control. US to give yarn cotton benefits to India as with Bangladesh, says Mr. Piyush Goyal. This is pretty much in line with what we've been talking about when it comes to US situation, right? US, the tariffs and the whole, uh, with the 50% tariffs, India was basically uncompetitive when it comes to markets like Indonesia, Vietnam, China, of course, Bangladesh, and so on and so forth. But with these reduced tariffs, India is in a very favorable situation, especially if you look at the textile situation. So, India was deciding. This is why we read history as a process, not as a collection of museum pieces, right? If you learn history, you're going to find out how things actually move. So, India used to use its own cotton, right? Now, that cotton essentially was slightly high priced. Now, India had to make a choice whether it uses US cotton, which is lowly priced, and the man made fibers. If it uses that, that essentially becomes a leverage to deal with the tariff situation, right? Hey, we're going to get your cotton, we're going to export textile back. So let us do that. And that's exactly what India went with. India sort of put aside its cotton farmers and started importing American cotton. And now that particular incentive which America gave to India to buy its cotton and then send back the textiles is pretty much in line with Bangladesh. So India has a better tariff situation, and then of course similar incentives for buying cotton and man-made fibers used to make clothes, right? So that's exactly what's happening. Uh, this is pretty much what we've been discussing, so we won't revise ourselves. CPSC, four key government entities maintain capex impetus. So we know why Indian economy has been doing how it's been doing, right? What is the cornerstone of Indian economy? Whatever growth we are having, whatever, you know, what do you think, if you were to put it in one word, or let's say collection of two words, what would it be? Let me take a sip. We talked about this, right? It's related to something we need and something we have. So what is that particular pillar of Indian economy and its growth? If you can go ahead. It is supposed to be related to just what I said: CPSC, government entities. What is it? What is it? Come on, folks. We've talked about this. We've talked what is responsible for basically all of Indian growth, right? And that's also a big sore issue for the government, right? And it has been, and now things are getting better. We've talked about this. So you can go ahead. Anybody? I'll give you 5 more seconds. Nobody? Come on. Come on. Come on. Come on. That's also. I'm a big fan of Joey Pesci. Anyway, so it's basically government capex. You know about government capex, right? Government capex is a lot of money. A lot of money flows to India, right? Railways, NHAI, of course, are top spenders. Railways and NHAI are gonna continue with their spend over 2 lakh crores each. We're gonna come out with the numbers, but they are gonna go heavy, right? So the capex numbers are down, but that's this fiscal year in this period of time, because this fiscal had a front loading of capex in the initial uh, you know period because of elections and so on and so forth. So we're going to be pretty much where we are, where we want to be as far as the fiscal deficit, but at the same time we're going to be very happy with the capex situation. Capital expenditure by the government and domestic consumption, correct, Mr. Ranga Pandit, is absolutely right. Capital expenditure by government is the cornerstone of Indian economy, and Indian government wants more private participation when it comes to capex. Domestic consumption is uh, sort of, they have a chicken and egg situation: domestic consumption, private capex. If domestic consumption rises, private capex rises. Private capex rises, domestic consumption rises, and so on and so forth. Now that's exactly what government wanted, and that's starting to happen. But there's always room for more when it comes to that. So let's see. But the good news is that the government isn't slowing down. Let's move on. We've talked about IT stocks. Jane Street, the case is on. I told you when it come to right after we heard Tiger Global's case, I told you that there's another case which is very, very big and is very highly consequential, and it is also related to the treaty benefits in international businesses in India, and that's Jane Street. Now that case is going on. Jane Street moves. Supreme Court seeks clarity on legal privilege. They're saying, are we supposed to, you know, give away the attorney-client privilege when it comes to sharing data with SEBI and all. So viewers of Thinkers Frequency know what happened with Jane Street. So these people had two entities in India, and one entity in Hong Kong and one entity in Singapore, right? And what these people were doing was they were using the two Indian entities to, so yeah, so they were using two Indian entities to basically jack up the prices, and then they shorted those with those particular, foreign entities. So they lost money on Indian entities and actually made all the money on foreign entities, right? So that was Indian government, Indian tax guys realized was a tax violation. It was a clear violation of tax. It was a clear abuse of treaty, and also it was unlawful gains, right? So the government essentially asked them to deposit 4,500 crores as proceeds of unlawful gain for till the time this case is on, right? So that particular bit is on. They shared data initially. Jane Street was very forthcoming. They said, yeah, we're happy to cooperate, but then they sort of pushed back, as it's gonna bite them in the butt, right? So those people have been able to make about what, $4 billion in 2 years, something of that sort. It's just unbelievable the kind of money that they have been able to do, make, right? And that's not good, not good essentially. And a lot of markets were also had to be calibrated to avoid that kind of abuse. Let's see what happens in that situation. I believe personally, I think if Indian government is serious, they're gonna set a precedent and they're not gonna let Jane Street fly. So let's see what happens. Move on, folks. PSB credit cards bag larger piece of spending pie. That's okay. Indians say no to sweet talk. Carbonated, caffeinated, or squeezed. More and more people prefer low or no sugar drinks. Well, this is, don't trust this data. These people are hyping up the fringe market of the health drink, so to speak. Right? India is pretty much uh, where it was when it comes to consumption patterns. But yes, at the upper end of the spectrum, at the top of the pyramid, the tiny pyramid, the top of it, that's where changes are actually happening, right? Sales of zero and low sugar drinks surged to a 5-year high in 2025, establishing emergence, right? But they no sugar drinks, Thumbs Up, Sprite Zero, as well as juice, touched an all time high of 30% of the total in 2025. So, Coca Cola's zero sugar drinks, 30% of the total. That is not bad at all. Coca Cola leads the 60,000 crore plus soft drinks market, right? PepsiCo also has similar numbers, 59% mid sugar drinks, 59% up from 53%. But when it comes to mid sugar, right, and all of these classifications, is that a shift in the sell, or is that a shift in the product preference? That's also a very big concern, right? Because a lot of times this rebranding is essentially just rebranding with no focus on the core product, or no change in the core product, or little to no change in the core product. But uh, you know at the onset, prima facie, it looks like this market is trying to get up, although I wouldn't really you know join the cheerleader squad just as yet. Let's move on, folks. USV is buying 79% in Well-being, valuation of 1583 crore. Well-being is a D2C brand. It's into pharma play, right? Nutrition. It had Unilever and one VC company as investors. Now they're both divesting. It's gonna touch 450 crores in the FY27, 450 to 500 crores of revenue. The company is valued at 1583 crores. That's essentially 3 to 4 times forward revenue. That's okay, right? USV is going to be buying that. Unilever is offloading it to focus on core brands. They have another other brands to focus on. Unilever obviously came out with its numbers, not that great, right? Nothing exceptional about it, but 6% year on year sales growth, easing food inflation, supporting monetary policy, and so on and so forth. Profit before exceptional items just rose 1%. Now, is Unilever a stock to buy? Right? I'll say no. If you are considering the opportunity, again, we are not stock traders. We don't do that. Thinkers Frequency is about thinking in general, right? About markets, business, and finance. But Unilever, as a player, has the most to lose and least to gain when it comes to Indian pharma story. I'm sorry, Indian FMCG story. Why? Because at the top of the tree, it's very saturated. The market is getting chipped away by new D2C players from the bottom and sides. Right, the competition is fueling, uh, and it's basically going to be acquiring brands and seeing how it can turn them around. Acquisitions look pretty in the beginning, but if you've noticed, if you've read, there's a beautiful book by the way called $1 billion Lessons. Now, it should be there. The $1 billion Lessons talks about how acquisitions do not work out. In fact, most acquisitions fail because of cultural integration issues, product synergy, finance overlaps, and so on and so forth. So a lot of redundancies and so on and so forth. So acquisitions look pretty, that oh, these people are buying a lot of brands, but over time what people have realized is that in most cases acquisitions don't work. Yes, there are some exceptional cases like Meta, Instagram, right? Google, YouTube, and so on and so forth. But those are the exceptions, not the norm. But for now, Unilever is basically looking at acquiring brands. It bought Minimalist, it bought a lot of place, so it's gonna have to see where it can go from there. And basically, there's little room to grow, so not a very good opportunity to invest. Let's see. Let's move on, folks. India is making its own fighter jet. Viewers of Thinkers Frequency know what we believe, what I've been talking about the fighter jet situation. Fighter jets are not, they're an obsolete technology. India's going to spend lakhs of crores on fighter jets, and as they come out, 2022 is 2032. 2032 is when they're going to hit the fighter jet situation, and we're going to see that they're obsolete by then. Let's see. Moving on, folks. It's pretty amazing, right? Although we're doing very good with shipbuilding. That's awesome. Let's move on. After five robust quarters, telco's revenue growth slows to single digits, 9%. That's what these people. Muted show comes despite strong user additions, rise in data usage. Airtel tops the ARPU, average revenue per user growth. Airtel's ARPU is pretty solid. 10 new million subscribers, right? 10 million new subscribers. Jio added 9 million, 18 Airtel 4.4 million. Vodafone lost, of course, 3.8 million. Vodafone has no way to go, right? Although the debt situation and clearance of it should lead to some good things happening to the company. It should come out of the survival mode and onto the growth mode. But for now, it's losing ground to Airtel. Airtel's ARPU is pretty much 21.6% up, right? Which is awesome. 259 in Q3, which was 21% higher than Jio. So Airtel, we've marked Airtel as one of the good stocks, right? Good instruments to buy in the Thinkers Frequency Tracker. So let's see what happens to Airtel. Airtel should be able to leverage the Satcom situation as well. I just got reminded that I have not written anything about nuclear, right? Nuclear as an industry has the potential to grow 10x, just like the weight loss play and the Satcom play. But Indian companies, let's say NTPC, I guess, they are investing in nuclear because of the Shanti bill. So there must be some movement when it comes to nuclear stocks as well. But we'll have to read more about it. So if somebody knows, right, I welcome them to a discussion. Let's discuss. Here's what I want to know about. I want to know about which REITs to pick. Real estate investment trusts, right? There are five listed REITs in India, and they're obviously gonna do well. And then of course nuclear energy and so on and so forth. So some instruments that we can pick. So what I realized after writing Thinkers Frequency Tracker was, now we've been talking about a lot of things, right? And directionally we've been correct, like more often than not. Almost always we've been very right directionally, but we've not really capitalized on this accuracy of predictions, right? A lot of times we've just let the predictions go, let the predictions happen. Like we didn't invest in Shelly when we started talking about it. We've always said what's going to happen with that. We didn't invest in a lot of companies which were supposed to go up, right? Which were going to go up. We knew that, but we didn't do that. So that is not good. Semiconductor companies, of course, right? We have been talking about semiconductors since the beginning of the show, right? It's about a year, and many companies in the semiconductor play have gone like extraordinary, right? Extraordinary, but we've not really uh, earned anything out of that intelligence. So that is not nice. We should we should think about how to actually zero down on the insight, the fundamental insight, and find out what to buy, right? And that's when we're gonna help. That's how we're gonna be able to help the viewer of Thinkers Frequency who wants to pare his debt of 10 lakh rupees, right? So the goal, we know the goal. The goal is he has 1 lakhs and then 1 lakh getting added in a year, and he wants to pare a debt of about 10 lakh rupees, right? And we got to do it quick. So the goal is to have like a 5x return, 2 lakhs to 10 lakhs in about a year, right? That's what we want. sooner the better, of course. But and that's extraordinary, and we've got to have be right with a few good picks, right? We could capitalize on Ether, we could capitalize on a lot of other places, but we need to be solid. So if somebody comes out with says, "Hey Nishant, I know semiconductor stocks," just write on the Thinkers Frequency Tracker the comment, and then we'll discuss it. Or you want to come to the show itself and talk about it, just give me a message and we'll talk about which stock you want to should we pick up when it comes to semiconductor stocks, right? Just do. Mr. Abhishek Sharma says, thoughts on government plan for Vodafone given BSNL is already present. So true about Shelly. Well, Vodafone, they're trying to save Vodafone. They're 48.99%. They want their stock to go up and then they want to sell the stock. So the government is not going to let Vodafone die. That's why the whole moratorium play and, forgetting about the debt. So Vodafone will, and especially since the government has chosen to forget about the debt for a while, for a long while actually, Vodafone should be able to do something, right? In the face of everything that's going on. So the beauty is that its competition is very, very tight, right? Airtel and Jio are both doing exceedingly well. And despite the moratorium, Vodafone doesn't have the muscle to compete. So while it might be able to raise money, there are a lot of ifs. If it's able to raise money, if that capital is well deployed, if that capital leads to and a better brand recall or something of that sort, then Vodafone will be able to stop losing customers. Let's think about that. Let's not even think about gaining customers. Then it will stop losing customers, and then it might just become an opportunity. But for now, Vodafone is where it was. So what we were saying is, we've got to be uh, conscious that these insights that we keep discussing and then we keep honing as time goes by, they are used, right? It could be amazing for the person who wants to pay his debt, right? Let's move on, folks. uh yeah, telcos we've discussed. Elevated growth, low inflation, no fluke, says Minister Madam Nirmala Sitaraman. She's awesome. She's on fire lately. She used to be the punching bag. She even said that it's easy for me to be a punching bag for everybody, right? But we are doing what we are doing, and she's right. They are doing what she's doing, what they're doing, and pretty well actually. They've been able to navigate. I especially liked how they dealt with the whole tariff situation, right? Tariffs came along, and she's been right uh, in hindsight in a lot of cases. So when things were developing, right, and people were looking at her as a joke and people were making fun of her, a lot of things she stood for, they turned out to be right, like in a couple of quarters or so. So I'm really impressed. uh, I didn't have any special view on Madam Sitaraman, but now I'm almost a fan. Let's move on, folks. Yeah, spending touches the CPSE numbers we wanted to know, right? The PSUs, the Central Public Sector Enterprises, 6.7 lakh crores is the number till January this fiscal year. It's something around 11.2 lakh crores or something of that sort. 6.7 lakh crores has already been touched. Railways, of course, is highest, 2. Right? Railways and NHAI to 2.16 lakh crores to 1.82 lakh crores. Others are NTPC, Indian Oil, ONGC, and so on and so forth. So that's what's going on, folks. Huge. Uh, India's GDP, of course, yeah, April to December. So that's what's going on. Let's move on, folks. Playbook partners. So there are a couple of deals which we should talk about when it comes to the hospitality play, right? Number one is Playbook partners buying 5% at Subway India. Subway India for 130 crores. That means Subway India is being valued at about 2,600 to 2,800 crores, right? That's pretty interesting because Subway as a company overall is pretty much dead as disco, right? Subway used to be huge. It used to be extraordinary. It used to be a privately owned company. Fred DeLuca, Sir Fred DeLuca, rest in peace. He used to own almost 100% of the company. And it's a very interesting story. There's the biography of Subway. Very nice guy, very nice book, right? And you should read it. It's a fun book, easy to read. Then he starts going about lessons and so on. Nice book. But the point is, Subway was a privately held enterprise and people used to value it as at par with McDonald's. And McDonald's used to be like a $150 billion company at that time. 100. So that's where Subway used to be, right? Um, and then Subway was sold to a private equity play for what? $8 billion, $7 to $8 billion. So Subway overall globally has fallen from grace. But in India, apparently it's doing well. Although I doubt it, but everybody wants to go public. So why are these people going 5% in Subway? So that Subway India could go public, right? And Empresario is also a restaurant brand. They hold Smokehouse Delhi, Antisocial, Social, and so on and so forth. All of those guys, they are looking at buying a bunch of hospitality chains and then go public, right? So Empresario is also going public, and Subway India is also, and they're all trying to position themselves as flat platform plays. Now the idea is that a good idea to invest, right? Because now companies like Empresario and Subway, right? They've proved their metal. They've done a lot of work, and Empresario is at about 1,500 crore in revenue stage. We're gonna discuss that. Subway, you know, is I the revenue numbers are not mentioned, but I'm assuming Subway must be doing something around uh, what's the revenue multiple they must be getting? Can you guess Subway's revenue multiple? I think they must be getting about 4 or 5, right? So which means they must be doing it about 300 400 crores of revenue. Let me check. Let me check. That's just my thought. Like, let me check if I'm right. Subway operates 900 outlets with reports indicating 3,500 crores in revenue. That's not possible. That cannot be right. Yeah. So that's gonna be a little difficult to find out, right? But 6 months ago, yeah, Subway India. Let me check, folks. This is very important. I want to find out the revenue multiple of Subway India at least. Uh, no, revenue numbers are not mentioned. And it's gonna be complicated because these people sell franchise, right? So it's gonna be a slightly complicated accounting. But point is, that all of them are looking at going public, right? So is it a good idea to invest in the hospitality play? Now I always get scared because hospitality is a very difficult business. Hospitality, I mean, food service business is very difficult to scale. It's very difficult to manage the operations of a growing food business, especially a horizontal platform kind of a play, which Empresario is talking about, right? They, my uh, metric for that is Barbecue Nation. Like Barbecue Nation is a pretty good company, right? It's been doing well. It is a very well run, operationally tight company, and they're not doing bad, right? If as far as my knowledge is concerned, I might be missing out on something. But look at Barbecue Nation stock. Barbecue Nation stock, right? So if you look at Barbecue Nation stock, it's gonna be you're gonna get scared. You're gonna get really scared, right? So it's 1,000 crore market cap, and the stock has pretty much, you know, gotten demolished. It debuted at 720, and it's now at 260 bucks. So that's Barbecue Nation. So you can imagine, and that is a very well run company, right? So what happens to is that right now Indian markets are in such a wave that everything wants to go public. In fact, Italian company back Finoli is going public in India. So India is becoming like a hub of multinationals going public because the domestic market is so strong, right? But this is a lot of it is Fugazi Fugazi, I feel. Mr. Abhishek Sharma asks, quick question. Given Subway has already name in the market, and if they expand their offerings to Subway special momos, burgers, could it work? Yeah, that's my point. That's what I was saying, right? On paper, it could work, right? You could cross sell, or you could basically upsell, and so on and so forth. But food operations are so difficult to manage that none of the things work out. In fact, the brand equity gets diluted, right? And unless you're Haldiram's, because that's magic, right? What those people have been able to do when it comes to the restaurant business is just unbelievable. But other than that, let's say Savana Bhavan, right? All of these people are very, very exceptional cases. Just very few people and very exceptional, right? Most of the people are not being able to, they cannot sustain, they cannot grow, and they can certainly not diversify. So that's something to think about when it comes to food service. Very complicated business. Inox RJ Corp to invest 1700 crore in Africa. Green Power joint venture. That's okay. Africa is going to get a lot of money. Airtel Africa, by the way, did very well. We've discussed about that. Let's move on, folks. Hindalco to infuse about $250 million into Novelis. That's Aditya Birla Group. So that plant had fire and so on and so forth. So they're going to give them a lot of capital. $1 billion is going to go in. We're going to put in $1 billion of equity into Novelis, and this is going to help them during the next 6 to 8 months because of the whole fire situation. So not good time. Adani's Kutch Copper eyes 3,100 crore in EBITDA FY27. That's Adani Group. It's a smelter, copper smelter of Adani Group. Copper is how you get silver, right? Has that got something to do with the whole play? Maybe, maybe not. But the utilization will start in 2 to 3 months, and you'll see the numbers in the first quarter. So they are very positive. Let's see what happens. ONGC Q3 profit up. That's okay. Law firms in India. CPSEs assets are looking at getting monetized via REITs. So how does that work? Do you ever wonder how these people are basically making REITs, right? Or trying to monetize. So they have like 10 lakh crores in government properties, these CPSEs, right? 10 lakh crores in real estate. Now they get rents from that real estate, but that rent is pretty stable, right? That cannot be used to unlock any. It will be good if you securitized this particular asset. So let's say if you have a home, right? It gets 100 rupees in rent, right? You could basically through RIITs, you could REITs, you could securitize this particular play, raise 70 bucks, right? Let's say 100 rupee plot, you can raise 70, keep the rental income, and then pay dividends to other people. So securitization frees up a lot of cash money, leads to easier monetization, and CPSEs are looking at asset monetization via REITs. So we should invest in REITs. It's a no-brainer, right? Even though housing numbers are not very positive. So if you look at tier 2, housing sales have fallen 10%, right? 15 top 15 cities, tier 2, housing sales have fallen, value is intact. And that's because the sub 1 crore housing market, it's not growing at all. It's not growing at all, right? But still, REITs are very, very healthy investments. Have to be. We've just got to pick the right one. And for that, we should discuss. Please drop your comments on the Thinkers Frequency tracker, because I am limited by time. I'm not a trader. I'm not an investor. I just do this as a hobby. And there's only so much I can do, right? So if you have special insights on it and could talk about it, please feel very welcome to talk on Thinkers Frequency. IT stocks, we've talked about how IT stocks screwed themselves, right? No surprise to us. BHEL had an OFS, didn't get very much subscribed, right? Let's move on. Mutual funds raise bets on financials, trim IT and FMCGs. Well, you're too late, guys. Credit access, Grameen gets more suitors. Now, microfinance was a sector which was reeling under pressure, right? Reeling under pressure. Microfinance was reeling under pressure, but it's starting, since the past 2 years, it was not in a good shape, but it's now started recovering, the microfinance, which is making the credit access guys, wanting to exit. So they want to exit. They want to provide liquidity to their long-term shareholders, and in a way, retire at the top, right? Because you never know how the microfinance sector. So the sector had like a systemic issue, right? Over leveraged customer base who were not being able to pay, right? And those same customers were being targeted by everybody, as Madam Padmaja said from Spandan Murthy, right? So now that particular sector is facing some recovery of sorts, and credit as access is looking at exiting. Right, gross loan portfolio at 27,000 crores roughly, net interest margins 13%, right, 2,222 branches, 21,000 employees, gross NPA 4%. Ideally, the NPA's range is about 2.1 to 2.3%, 4%, right? That's why it is a very big problem. So, a promoter's majority stake will go out. Let's see. Muthoot Finance net doubles provisions almost half. Now, why do you think Muthoot Finance is doing so well? Because of gold loans, right? Muthoot Finance has huge AUM when it comes to gold, and this is one of another of the investments that we missed. The whole gold rally, gold we picked up, right? But as gold rose, Muthoot Finance also rose, right? But we didn't really. Sorry about that, folks. The stock went up by 70% roughly in 1 year, and we couldn't get any part of it. That's even though we knew. So, even though we knew about the industry, we knew about the trend, we knew about gold loans, says Mr. Abhishek Sharma, that's 100% right. Even though we knew about the fundamentals, we didn't really mark it, right? So, Thinker's Frequency Tracker, while I was writing, it gave me so much insight to what we've been talking about and how we've only been talking about. We didn't really, at least I didn't really go and invest in the knowledge I already had and the knowledge that we had cultivated over time. We just didn't take it. That's so sad, right? That's so sad. In just 6 months, right? In just 6 months, it has gone 60%, the stock, right? Now, the question is what happens to Muthoot Finance now? Do you think the gold loans will continue? I think yes. Gold loans, banks are really going heavy on gold loans. Uh, in fact, even for small and medium businesses, RBI wants gold loans, gold as a collateral, right? Agri loans, there it's being discussed. Gold loans, I think, is going to go. It's going to keep going up, right, in times to come. Although we might have lost a lot of money on the table, that's fair, but I think there's a lot of scope still. So let's see what happens to Muthoot Finance. Company opens plans to open 150 to 200 branches next year, about 50 more than what it had planned this year. So definitely, Mr. Abhishek Sharma writes, but there may be risk given gold all-time high and gold price may lower. Well, uh, gold might just get lowered, but only for a while, right? Although it might be said, let's say if Ukraine-Russian war gets settled, and there's like an absolute calm and equanimity in the market, right? Because of the Russia and Ukraine war situation, the geopolitical tensions overall sort of ease, right? That's when gold will start getting slightly edged off, but that will also lead to a lot of problems. So if you notice the markets, they already got pretty much tumbled just last night, the US markets. So we never know, but yeah, gold loans, I guess, as I said, we've lost the rally, but might be that there's still, it's definitely not a multi-bagger anymore, but a lot of room to grow for sure. For sure, that's what I believe. I might be wrong. I'll do a slightly deeper analysis of the whole situation and see what can be done, right? Let's move on, folks. Muthoot Finance, by the way. God damn it, I knew about it. Anyway. CCI has fined Intel for anti-government practice, anti-competitive practice. So the beauty is that even when gold goes down, the jewelers and all start going happy because then people want to invest in uh, whatever is the tapered amount. So there's a lot of support at the lower you know, downturns, gold downturns, and that's a signal to where the market is going. But anyway, let's move on, folks. UN climate chief Simon calls for cooperation in the unstable world. Does anybody give a shit about climate models anymore? Does anybody give a shit about climate models at all, even now? If you do, well, I've got a bridge to sell you. It's very climate friendly. It's like $5 million. You invest in 5 million, you're gonna save the climate. Right? It's gonna be beautiful. Sea levels are gonna drop down. All you gotta do is just give me $5 million, and the climate will fix itself. Right? That's what I believe. When it comes to climate models, they're a scam. Let's move on, folks. IHCL net jumps 50% in Q3, new business boost revenue. 12% rise in revenue. Hotel sector is doing pretty well. Hotel sector in India is generally doing well. If you know about the occupancy rate is about 65.7%. The ADL, the average daily rate, is also pretty. So hotel as an industry, right, is doing pretty well in the country. And despite the expansion, there's a lot of private equity action also happening. There's a lot of investments that are happening, and so on and so forth, right? So uh, the question is, should hotels be invested in? If you gotta, well, I am of the view that, I think Indian hospitality, a lot of growth is pretty much faff still. This time, hospitality, I'm using it correctly. I mean, actual hotels, because I see a lot of weakness in the tourism sector in general, right? India is not being able to, the overall sentiment on Indian tourism, right, is negative, right? We're not being able to draw foreign visitors even as before. I mean, the numbers are down. Indians, the bottom top of the pyramid, and in fact even the middle of the pyramid, they are experiencing overseas travel like never before. Like our viewer Thinkers Frequency, Mr. Tushar Tiwari himself went to Vietnam for a vacation. He could have gone anywhere, but he chose Vietnam, right? And that's a good choice because Vietnam is a beautiful country, right? A lot of people are going to Japan. Japan is seeing about 3.5 lakh Indian tourists, right? So Indians are essentially going out a lot. That leaves market for the intra country tourism, and I'm not personally very bullish about it, but let me see how IHCL stock is doing. I presume it's going to do well. It must have done well in the last year, but let me see. No, it's not. No, it's not. 6.72%. That's pretty stable. Although in a 5 year horizon, it's gone up by 500%, 450%. So in the last year, it's been pretty static because Indian, tourism as an industry has some weaknesses that need to be addressed. But IHCL has done very well for now. So let's see what happens to the stock in the coming days. McDonald's US showing some signs of recovery. Sales surge most in 2 years. Let's move on. Accor and Interglobe Way IPO for joint hospitality venture. Record year for Accor, 4,000 rooms. So that's another IPO story. We've talked about that. Let's move on, folks. Shadow Facts 5x revenue, Q3 PAT. Indian GCC set to add 1.2 to 1.4 lakh hands on their rolls, but they're also cutting 10,000 job profiles as AI progresses and moves forward. So that is not a surprise for anybody. Indian GCCs already have about 1.8 million, employees, and they're gonna add 1.4 lakh this year. So let's see what happens. Let's say if I'm getting the number right. I hope I'm getting the number right, right? That's 1800 GCCs definitely in India, but I don't remember the number of employees in GCCs have right now. I guess it's somewhere around 2 million. Let me check. Indian GCCs total employees. 1.9 to 2 million. Correcto. So that's what's going on, folks. AI is definitely cutting jobs. Let's see what happens, right? This is pretty much what we have for today, folks. I mean, today, as in Friday, we're gonna revise ourselves with the rest of the happenings. Agni Cool and Neve Cloud plan India's first orbital AI data center platform. Well, that's very obvious, very necessary. The world is warming up to AI data centers in space. Space data centers are a reality, and they're very important. Why? Because energy requirements are going up, right? And space perhaps offers a lot of that optimization. However, I'm concerned on how the data essentially travels. But there must be, I must not know the science behind it. But Agnikul is the rocket company. They say that their first head, right, of the uh, machine that they've created, the uh, platform, right, they have space. They've designed it to carry a data center as well. So let's see how that particular bit plans out. Target a proof of concept before end of 2026. Start commercial ops by 2027. That's a pretty good timeline. Pretty good timeline. Let's see how this happens. Let's move forward. By the way, speaking of chips, Samsung is coming out with its own AI chip. It's moving close, right? Speaking of chips, we've got to talk about AI investments, Nvidia and Palantir. Since Dr. Michael Burry's shot, Palantir has gone down by 35%. The peak from 35 to 38%. That's how awesome it is. Jewelers have a percentage model for making charges. Even if the gold price are high, they get more money. But when the gold charges are high, people do not really uh, go and buy so much, right? It's just a low margin making business. They're not being able to sell. Isn't it contradictory that GCC will add jobs while also same time AI impact will be there on job roles? Yeah, I mean it is definitely contradictory, but that's how it is, right? So uh, while AI removes job roles, like categories of jobs, right? Because things are getting set up, there's gonna be some momentum when it comes to the job market, right? And that's good news. That's bound to be. So they're setting up their ops. After they've set up their ops, there's gonna be a hiring cycle, right? There's when they're set up, they're gonna be huge, and then there's gonna be some correction. The usual uh, flow of things, right? GCCs, and that's what's gonna play out here. So let's see how that pans out. Uh, let's move on, folks. Talked about RBI. AI laptops are not really kicking in. That's not happening. Indians show no urge to press buy buttons for AI PCs. The memory prices have also played spoil sport to the whole market. And then, uh, smartphones and laptops both have not really been able to pick up in the whole AI parade. Let's move on, folks. We've talked about FMCG companies, right? Commodity gains. Taxman against Jane Street. We've talked about that as well. Mahindra and Mahindra has planned a 15,000 crore auto and tractor unit in Maharashtra. Mahindra and Mahindra is looking at spending 15,000 crores, but hold your horses, it's spread over the next 10 years. That's basically 1,500 crores a year, which is not bad, but it's a pretty good news for as far as the capex play is considered. We need a lot more capex, so it's a pretty good news, right? Let's move on. A lot of numbers came along. Tata Steel did well, although Tata UK hasn't done well. Tata bought Chorus Steel in 2006 or 7 and merged it. Ever since that, the UK play has just fallen apart, and that has never worked out. The Dutch unit has worked, but the UK unit hasn't. And Tata Steel's overall play sort of gets muddled up because of that. But they say that there's no growth opportunity that they've missed because of the UK. They've expanded Indian steel production to 40 million metric ton or something of that sort, MTA, right? So, but Tata Steel's numbers are out and they're not bad. Let's move on. IAMAI has warned the government for the faster rollout of DPDP. You know why they must have been doing that, right? DPDP, if it gets implemented in a very quick way, it's gonna trouble the existing startups, the young companies, and so on and so forth, because it's gonna be hard for them to adjust to the whole situation. So slower implementation or a gradual implementation are what these guys are asking for. IMAI is the Internet and Mobile Association of India, right? So let's see. Interestingly, this association was founded by Mr. Sachin Bansal, I guess, when Flipkart and all, so they wanted to have an association to represent the deep tech guys. NASCOM couldn't have done it. Let me confirm this particular factor. Founder. Mhm. Founded in 2004, so that couldn't have been Flipkart, I'm assuming. Definitely not. No, I'm sorry. That's a different organization. I'm messing these things up. But anyway, these people are against TPDP's quick implementation. Move on. This last week had such extraordinary movements. Gold went up, silver went up, then went down. Bitcoin is just on a downward spree since then. Let's see what has been happening. Yeah, Bitcoin is nowhere, it's in the toilet. People are saying Bitcoin might just vanish, right? We've You've been watching Thinkers Frequency. You know what our views are on Bitcoin, right? I've never advocated for Bitcoin buying or anything. I've always said people used to, so they've been shifting goalposts when it comes to crypto. They used to call it cryptocurrency, right? But then it proved to be not a currency. Then they started calling it digital gold. But that also didn't pan out. Then they call it a hedge against dollar. That also didn't pan. So it's not a store of value. It's basically, nobody knows what it does, except for enabling payments for criminal organization, traffickers, and so on and so forth. So let's see how Bitcoin shapes up. But I bought the first Bitcoin back in 2016-17, right? Since then, it's been okay. It's not been great, but it's been okay. I mean, if you look at the 5-year returns of Bitcoin, it's about 130%, which is less than JK Siemens. Let's move on, folks. Fastag annual pass crosses 5 million users in 6 months, which is beautiful. Let's move on. Air India goes Lux, boosting profit. Dish TV faces 7.2 thousand crore license fee demand from MIB. Dues include interest. Companies dispute the demand. So the TV industry is falling apart, of course, and as it falls apart, it's just gonna be more and more bloodbath of this kind. So you know what happened with Z and Sony, and so there's a lot of trouble, and it'll keep propping up as the industry itself dies, right? Airtel eyes 25% share in India's data center market. One of the more reasons to be bullish on Airtel. It has a lot of green prospects, so let's see how that particular play plans out, right? Oyo parent logs 245 crore profit in FY25 on deferred tax gain. So they had a deferred tax gain, otherwise, which of 700 crores. Otherwise, they lost 500 crores, right? On a net level. So Oyo is a shit company. They're going through lawsuits in US as well now, right? US, the consortium of Motel 6 owners, they've come against Oyo. In India, they're also going through lawsuits, many lawsuits, but they're still gonna go public because, fortune. Very nice. Let's move on, folks. Build, operate, transfer BOT model to be priority for highway projects in FY27, says Mr. Gadkari. That's okay. Let's move on. Gold loan companies to benefit from RBI move. Branch expansion norm. RBI has allowed branch expansion for gold loan. So that's pretty awesome. That's pretty awesome. Let's move on, folks. SBI net profit jumped 25% in December quarter. Banking has started doing well. SBI has started doing well. SBI was always outperforming the private sector and everything, the banking, it was basically the bellwether, and it's doing well still, right? So let's see how that particular play pays out. Now the question is, since SBI is such a big bank, is there room to grow? The answer is yes. Why? Because SBI essentially, India has this weird goal of making a too big to fail bank. India wants its two banks in the top 10 banks of the world, which means SBI is the natural bank to go that way, right? So India basically wants SBI's market cap to just go bazooka, and it joins the rank of one of the biggest banks of the world. If that goal is to stay, right? It's a part of the Vikasit Bharat strategy, by the way. It means that SBI will still have a lot of room to grow. Let me look at the SBI stock, guys. Since 5 years, it's gone 200%. That's not a lot of money. In 1 year, it's gone 63%. So the last year, it's done very well. Although in last 5 years, the response, is okay. It's pretty okay. Not that great, but yeah. It should go. It should have a stable upswing, that's for sure. Harley Davidson is going duty free, of course. India US trade pact, we've talked a lot about it. Harley Davidson's expensive bikes, they used to get 100% of custom, right? That's gonna change. They're not gonna happen anymore. It'll make them cheaper. Although Hero's tie up with Harley Davidson's 440cc bike, it's not gonna change at all. It's gonna stay where it stays. Let's move on. Tomorrow is Valentine's Day. I'm obviously going to be very busy. Just kidding. There's a report on Valentine's Day. They're saying people are booking experiences more than materials. So it's less about materials now and more about experiences. And you know what they were talking about? They were talking about booking hotel rooms. Those are the experiences Valentine's are booking. How unintuitive, right? Would you have guessed it? I wouldn't have. People booking hotel rooms in the Valentine's play. Come on, man. Come on. Come on. How do these people come out with these analyses? It's unbelievable. Experiences over materials. And what's the experiences? Like, are they booking trips or something? No, man. They're just booking hotel rooms. And they are also going sexual toys and stuff. Nice. Oh, man. Okay. AI deployment, we've been talking about that. Ola is trimming its reality footprint. It's recalibrating operations, cutting costs. 1.7 lakh square feet of space given away in Bangalore. That's a natural shrink for the company. Ola Electric is in deep trouble, obviously. Let's see what happens to the company. They're doing a lot of work on battery manufacturing. So what they want to do, so what I see is the natural pivot for Ola in the future is that it goes away from the consumer business. It becomes a battery supplier. It becomes B2B. Something like what Micromax did with their phones. So they were earlier phone manufacturers, brand, but instead of the brand, when they got screwed in the brand business, they started becoming an offshore design manufacturer, right? They became an ODM, not an ODM, let's say contract manufacturer. So Ola might just become a component supplier to the whole EV revolution. That is what they might just be looking for, because their brand is dead as disco. That's pretty much certain. So that's the only strategy which can actually stand its ground. So let's see. Let's move on, folks. Big tech. $650 billion this year. Big tech is sending $650 billion in AI race intensification. D2C fragrance firms, rising premiumization, fast growing D2C segment. So this is particular story, the D2C fragment business and the copycat fragment business. We discussed this 6 months ago, right? We said this particular industry is in a very nascent stage right now, and it could be a very good investment because people are really looking forward to buying fragrances, and that's finally happening. So 6 months on, these people have begun raising a lot of money. Let's move on, folks. Indian companies that had planned partnerships with Chinese companies. PN3 approval pending, but some Indian companies get going. So let's see what happens with India and China trade play. Very complicated. Very complicated. Let's move on. India Inc. revs up, gets loan books ticking. Corporate credit growth picks up for lenders as company push capex amid high demand and economic activity. High demands are obviously one of the reasons why capex will grow up, and then capex banking will also grow up. This is why in the sheet I have also written yes bank, right? That is my pick in the banking play, right? Let's see how this particular play pans out. Obviously, it's not as good a pick as SBI, right? But it should see some recovery. Let's move on. Hope I'm not missing out on anything. Electric air taxis. Urban rooftops could become vertiports. Idle spaces could unlock additional income, says CII study. Not saying anything is happening, but I have met a few uh, air taxi players, and it could be a revolution. Mr. Ankur Pandit writes, B2B needs trusted high quality suppliers, not people that feed on hype alone. Ola has consistently promised so much and failed to deliver on timelines and quality. That's Mr. Ankur Pandit's reading on Ola Electric's possible pivot as a B2B supplier of batteries. Well, you can't argue with that. It's a fair point. But that's the only way the company can go. Because more than B2B suppliers, the customers have lost a lot of trust in Ola, right? So if the company is to survive, it'll have to go forward with that pivot. Otherwise, it's going to be big trouble. Let's move on, folks. Urban rooftops. Gurgaon cannot place in Jewar Airport. Sky's the limit. CIA say rooftops could serve as landing place. Let's move on. Jio is absorbing its subsidiary TV network arm Indiacast. Right? That's okay. We keep going premium. I hope I'm not missing out on anything. I'm pretty sure I am not. I'm being very thorough. LLP registrations crossed 10,000 mark for the first time in January. Services boom and improving manufacturing, drawing entrepreneurs. Company incorporations up 39%. Right? So this is very important because we often look at the employment data. We're often looking at employment data and we're seeing, oh, employment could be a concern and so on and so forth. Is unemployment a concern? That number has to be looked at in a very holistic way, and one very important factor while judging the employment number is the number of companies that are getting set up. The companies are the company loans that are being dispersed, and so on and so forth. So services incorporations are happening. The caveat is that a lot of these could be shell companies and so on and so forth, because with the rising growth of entrepreneurial spirit, the country might just see a lot of shell companies. But there is a way to deal with that, especially in the age of data and analytics, right? And AI and so on and so forth. So let's see. But the numbers, this is an important number. LLP registrations have crossed 10,000 mark for the first time in January. Strong outlook. Incorporations are expected to stay strong as India's trade deal with US and EU offering zero duty or preferential access to $53 trillion market. Let's move on. Foreign company registrations also hit 5-year high. Let's move on. We're not going to talk about the Jeffrey Epstein situation, of course. It's cringe. We talked about credit access, the promoters selling, the microfinance play. Great. We're moving forward with speed. Indian tourists setting the European play on fire. Among the biggest cohort for train services across world for ease of travel. Swiss travel, Indians are signing up for Japanese trains and EU's European Union's train services as they travel abroad. This is exactly what I was referring to. Hotels scoring high still, right? ADL and occupancy rates pretty high. So that's exactly what I was talking about. There's another climate bullshit model if you want. India needs 22 trillion to hit net zero by 2070, says one climate model. Yeah, yeah. Screw yourself, man. Anyway, moving on. Japan has started the world's largest, biggest nuclear plant back, right? Japan has switched on the world's biggest nuclear power plant again on Monday after an early attempt was quickly suspended after a minor glitch. This is very big deal. Kashiwazaki Kariwa plant in Niigata region, right, has begun. This is a stark reversal of trends. Germany, in the meanwhile, has closed all its nuclear power plants. Japan and smart countries are picking them up. US is one of them. India, of course, has come out with Shanti Bill, which is great news. So let's move forward with that. Fractal's IPO happened. Couldn't really do the trick, but it's not that bad. Let's move on. Marico has bought a Vietnamese company for 350 crores or something. Marico is expert in buying small companies, so it bought one of my client companies, Beardo. They were used to be our clients back in 2016-17. They bought them for 150 crores, right, in a very early stage, and now they're grooming that company. So that's a very good strategy if you can execute that. You don't wait for the company to become a mature player, right? You buy them in their embryonic stages. Now it's done it with a Vietnamese play. I cannot pronounce the name, I'm sorry. Yeah. We were talking about Empresario. Empresario is the revenue. Revenue was 810 crores, right? 2 million profit, that's 18 crores profit. About 100 million in revenue, 2% margins. And that is the company. And they're buying a lot of companies to go public. So let's see what happens. The social, anti-social, and so on and so forth, guys. Right, Smokehouse, Delhi, and so on and so forth. Let's move on. We've talked about defense buying. By the way, the defense buying formula changed a bit. So, how the government procurement happens is that the contracts are awarded in an L1, L2 fashion. The lowest bidder with the compliance limits, right, they get the contract. And as they get the contract, the L2 guy has to match that price and he gets a lesser share. So the L1 gets more business, right, at the price, and the L2 guys have to abide by their price and serve the rest of the contract. That's how L1, L2, the government contracts usually work, right? Now in defense, they've changed the play a little. They've made it like L1 is okay, but it's gonna be sturdier. R&D is gonna be one of the factors. So it's not gonna be price and order book. It's also gonna be an R&D expense and so on and so forth. So it's not just lowest price who wins. They're adding some technical specifications and things to the formula. So that's what's going on with defense procurement, which is very necessary, absolutely necessary. Let's move on. Talked about the US-India deal. Warburg Mubadala leads race to buy majority in soframycin maker, right? Soframycin drug, the maker of it. Incube Ethicals Indian pharma is actually looking at a pretty big reset. These people are looking at drug development from the core, right? They've been traders essentially. They've been buying APIs and core products from China and then just essentially packaging them. So they've not been researchers and developers of those kinds, right? But now they're trying to look at that market as well, because you've got to. And let's see what happens. For now, Indian pharma, I have not been bullish on it, as you know, as you clearly know, right? So let's move on. Although Lupin and everybody, Zydus, they have done a few things which are pretty commendable, but from a money making perspective, not from a research oriented way. Let's see what happens, right? Biocon's numbers are also fine, by the way. Let's move on. Grasim nets up. Apollo Hospitals pat up 35%. Jubilant up. Profits rise 69%. And so on. So let's see, if you are looking at investing in the food services industry, would Jubilant will be still a good pick? That's a nice question. Would Jubilant be your pick if you were investing in the food service play? That company has been very successful with Domino's, although it's not been able to incubate more brands. And Domino's can only grow so much in the play, right? The Dunkin' Donuts play didn't work out. But let's see what Jubilant stock has been doing all this while. From a 5-year perspective, Jubilant is negative 4.7%, no growth. In a year, it has fallen by 20%. So that's what I was talking about when I was talking about the whole food services play, right? It's very hard. Let's move on. Talked about NHAI. Airtel and Jio lead wireless subscriber growth. BSNL Voda lose steam. Urban areas saw net addition of 6.86 million. Most of it went to Airtel and Jio. Piramal has raised 400 million in ECB external commercial borrowings, of course, from global and local lenders. They say these ECBs are going to be good sources of capital for us in times to come, which should be no surprise to anybody. We talked about how ECBs are going to be very attractive as India Inc.'s profitability improves and India's rating improves, right? So we've been doing that for a very long time. Let's move on. There's a lot happening to UK's political climate. It seems like Starmer, the government, is in deep trouble. Let's see what happens there. Well, Flipkart may be looking into food delivery business in the ONDC kind of a way, Rapido. Why do you think Flipkart is going forward to all of these venues? It's going public, right? So as it goes public, it needs to showcase the diversification and the possible future revenue streams. It's all accounting. It's not clear how anybody can do anything in the food delivery business. Ola has failed many times with the food delivery play. Uber also didn't work out. A lot of people tried with their own food delivery plays. I guess even Amazon tried it. I'm not sure though. It didn't work out. Food delivery is like in a mature state. It's a duopoly. And the third entrant is Rapido, of course, it's trying out a very different business model. But Flipkart is going in as it goes public. And that shouldn't surprise anybody, least of all the viewers of Thinkers Frequency. Moving on, folks. Bitcoin is in the toilet. We've talked about that. Talked about well-being, USB's acquisition of it from Unilever, HUL. LG to export premium home devices to US and Europe from India. This is obviously a benefit. Tractor sales up. Mahindra and Mahindra's Q3 earnings. Is Mahindra and Mahindra a good play, right? Because they're doing a lot of capex, they are expanding. Their tractor business is doing well. Their commercial vehicles, the passenger vehicles business is also doing well. So that group must be doing pretty awesome, right? Yeah, 300% 5 years, 20% 1 year. Yeah, it's like a mature share doing well. It's in a mature way, likely to do the same, in moving as it moves forward. Ashok Leland touches 11 to 13% growth in commercial vehicles industry. Never gonna touch it because it's Hindujas. Those people are frauds. It's very easy. Management is very important, right? If you don't have context, Hindujas are the guys behind IndusInd Bank. They're also the guys with the human trafficking history. They brought people to Switzerland, didn't pay them, and so on and so forth. And then IndusInd also plays out. I wouldn't be surprised if Ashok Leland also comes out with some government issues, right? These things trickle from the top. So let's move on. Adani Airport looking at raising 1500 crores in bonds. That's okay. Hundred-year-old Britannia wants to be a startup at heart. Now they've woken up to starting investing in brands, innovation. Bunch of bullshit. Let's move on. Heineken is cutting its 7% workforce because of the beer slump, right? As we've talked about a lot in the past. Alcohol isn't as hard as it used to be, right? A lot of rationalization when it comes to alcohol market. All the money is in premiumization. Let's see how far that goes. Let's move on. Microfinance shows spark but shrinks lowest in 3 years. Well, that's obvious. They've been trying to course correct when it comes to microfinance industry. And that's about it, my friends. Viewers of Thinkers Frequency, we have discussed, we've covered everything. We've been pretty tight, pretty thorough. I hope you liked the episode, right? I hope it was valuable. I hope it was fun. It was definitely a lot of fun for me, as it always is, right? Our weekly mental workout, our weekly dose of insights and analysis that don't lead to paralysis right before we punch in. It's 9:55, we should punch in. I wish you a great day, great week ahead. Happy Valentine's Day in advance. I'm gonna be very busy, as of course, as I imagine you are. Just kidding. But see you. Please take care and keep adding comments to Thinkers Frequency Tracker. It's there in the description of this video. Now we just keep adding to it the stocks and instruments and so on and so forth. And let's help our fellow viewer, pay his debt. Right, that's the goal, and let's try to help him as honestly as we can. Right. See you. Take care. Bye bye.